My beloved child, you've been fooled long enough, and God is exposing him now. You may not realize it yet, but heaven has been watching every silent moment, every whisper of confusion in your heart, every night you tried to convince yourself that what you were feeling wasn't real. You tried to explain away the doubts. You tried to ignore the tension in your spirit. You tried to believe the excuses he gave you. You tried to hold on to the version of him you once saw in your mind, a version that felt safe, warm, promising, and true. But God saw everything that you didn't. God saw everything that was done in the shadows. God saw every hidden intention. God saw every moment he pretended. God saw every time he told you part of the truth only to hide the part that mattered most. God is exposing him now because your heart has been faithful, your spirit has been honest, and your love has been pure. You didn't play games. You didn't manipulate. You didn't pretend. You didn't act out of ego or pride or fear. You showed up with sincerity. You showed up with hope. You showed up with a heart that was ready to give more than it received. And even though you didn't know it, God was protecting you the whole time. God was shielding you from what your emotions couldn't see. God was stopping you from giving too much to someone who wasn't ready, wasn't serious, or wasn't honest enough to hold what you were offering. This season has been long. You've been patient, maybe too patient. You waited for clarity, but clarity didn't come from him, it came from God. You waited for truth, but truth didn't come through conversation, it came through revelation. You waited for healing, but healing didn't come from closure, it came from God's intervention. And now, the veil is lifting. Now, the truth is beginning to surface. Now, the things you once overlooked are suddenly loud. Now, the moments you brushed off are resurfacing with a purpose. It's not your imagination. It's not overthinking. It's not insecurity. It's discernment. It's God. Heaven is pulling the blinds open on everything you were meant to see. The behaviors that once seemed confusing are now becoming obvious. The energy that felt off is now making sense. The patterns are repeating themselves in ways you can no longer ignore. The timing is too precise. The shifts are too clear. The signs are too consistent. God is making it impossible for you to stay blind because you've outgrown deception. You've matured past manipulation. You've evolved beyond illusion. And God refuses to let you be dragged backward into emotional chaos that He has already freed you from. You didn't lose Him, God is removing Him. You didn't get abandoned, God is protecting you from the wrong attachment. You didn't get rejected, God is redirecting you. This is not punishment. This is preparation. This is not heartbreak. This is alignment. This is not the end of love. This is the beginning of truth. And deep inside, a part of you already knows it. You can feel that something in your spirit has shifted. You're not holding on to him the way you used to. You're not trying to justify what doesn't feel right. You're not chasing answers from someone who avoids the responsibility of giving them. You're not waiting for a sign from someone who can't even be honest with himself. This exposure isn't to embarrass him, it's to free you. God is showing you who he really is so you can finally stop imagining who he could be. God is revealing the truth because the truth is the only thing strong enough to cut the emotional ties that have kept you stuck. God knows how much you care. God knows how deeply you feel. God knows how much potential you saw. But God also knows the intentions he hid, the distractions he entertained, the loyalty he didn't honor, and the communication he refused to offer. There were things you sensed but didn't have proof of. God is giving you the proof. Not through drama, not through confrontation, but through revelation. Through the sudden clarity that settles into your heart and refuses to leave. Through the peace that comes the moment you stop trying to fix what wasn't your responsibility to fix. Through the release you feel every time you distance yourself. Through the lightness in your spirit the moment you stop carrying the weight of a connection he never matched. If God has to expose him to free you, God won't hesitate. If God has to disrupt your plans to protect your destiny, he will. If God has to remove access from someone who was wasting your time, he will. And the truth is this: God is exposing him now because you are entering a season where confusion has no place, half-efforts have no place, dishonesty has no place, emotional inconsistency has no place, and false promises have no place. You are not meant to live in cycles. You are not meant to repeat the same emotional patterns again and again. You are not meant to question your worth because someone else was inconsistent. You are not meant to settle for someone who gives you glimpses when God wants to give you abundance. You are not meant to experience love through anxiety, uncertainty, or silence. Your heart was created for more. Your spirit was created for deeper. Your destiny requires truth, not performance. You may feel the tears come. You may feel the anger rise. You may feel the disappointment settle, but let it all happen. Let it release. Let it flow out of you. Because God is making room for the next chapter, a chapter where you no longer shrink your standards, silence your intuition, or compromise your stability for someone who couldn't see your value even when it was right in front of them. He fooled you because you loved him. But God is exposing him because God loves you. This exposure is not about judgment, it's about justice. It's about restoring what deception stole from you: your time, your confidence, your clarity, your peace, your hope. God is returning everything that emotional confusion tried to take. You are not losing anything in this season. You are gaining vision, strength, and spiritual precision. A time will come soon when you will look back and say, "Thank you, God. Thank you for showing me the truth before I went any further." You will realize this was divine intervention disguised as disappointment. You will realize that God wasn't removing love, He was removing a blockage. You will realize that the red flags were not warnings, they were protection. You will realize that the hurt wasn't failure, it was freedom. And the most incredible part? God is not just exposing him, God is elevating you. God is preparing someone who matches your heart, matches your energy, matches your loyalty, matches your capacity, and matches your intention. Someone who won't hide. Someone who won't confuse you. Someone who won't choose you only when it's convenient. Someone who won't speak to you in half-truths. Someone whose words and actions align effortlessly. Someone who won't run from depth but will embrace it. Someone who won't treat you like an option but like a blessing, but before that person arrives, the truth has to be revealed. The mask has to fall. The illusions have to shatter. The emotional fog has to clear. And that is what God is doing right now. You've been fooled long enough. God is exposing him now, and freeing you at the very same time. God is exposing him now, but not to break your heart, to wake your heart. To wake you from the spell of potential, from the illusion of what could have been, from the fantasies you created in moments of vulnerability. You weren't foolish for believing in him. You weren't wrong for seeing the good in him. You weren't naive for wanting to give love a chance. Your only mistake was assuming he carried the same level of depth, honesty, and readiness that you did. And God is uncovering the truth because the burden of carrying that misunderstanding is no longer yours. There is a point in every journey where God steps in because the signs are no longer enough, the warnings are no longer enough. The gentle nudges are no longer enough. Your heart is sensitive, loving, and hopeful, and God knows that sometimes love makes you stay longer than wisdom wants you to. So God intervenes. God disrupts. God rearranges. God reveals. Not because you are weak, but because your purpose is too strong, your calling is too important, and your future is too sacred to be delayed by someone who was never ready to walk with you. You may feel confused right now, but soon this confusion will turn into clarity so sharp it will feel like light flooding into a dim room. You'll start remembering small moments, little inconsistencies, sudden mood shifts, times when his words didn't match his actions. Times when he pulled away but came back only when he felt you slipping. And you'll realize God wasn't just revealing him, God was revealing you. Revealing your worth. Revealing your strength. Revealing the level of love you gave. Revealing the loyalty you carry. Revealing the softness of your heart, which is not a weakness but a divine gift. When God exposes someone, he exposes the parts you were never meant to carry. The hidden connections he kept. The secrets he thought would stay buried. The intentions he didn't want you to see because he knew they wouldn't match the promise he made with his words. And God is exposing these things not to create chaos but to bring peace. Peace that comes from truth. Peace that comes from closure you didn't have to beg for. Peace that comes when you finally stop trying to fix someone who refused to take ownership of their own growth. There is a divine shift happening. You may have noticed it already, the sudden emotional detachment, the way your heart doesn't cling like it used to, the way your spirit isn't confused anymore but surprisingly calm. That's not numbness. That's God healing you in real time. That is God removing the emotional cords one by one so you stop tying your future to someone who is still tangled in the past. That is God releasing you from the heaviness of a connection you were carrying alone, and soon, sooner than you realize, you will look at Him not with longing, not with sadness, but with understanding. You will see the truth plainly. You will see that God didn't expose him to hurt him, but to save you from wasting years in a story you were never meant to finish. Some people were only meant to be chapters, not the whole book. Some people were meant to awaken strength, not build a future. Some people were meant to teach you your own value, not share their life with you. You have loved deeply, and God honors that. But now God is teaching you to love wisely. To love yourself enough not to settle for someone who makes you question your intuition. To love yourself enough not to stay where you're tolerated instead of valued. To love yourself enough to walk away even when your heart still cares, because your soul knows it deserves more. God is exposing him now because the version of you that tolerated confusion no longer exists. You've grown beyond this. You've evolved past emotional games. You're stepping into a season where everything, relationships, connections, commitments, intentions, must be aligned with truth. And anyone who isn't built on truth cannot go with you. This exposure is the beginning of your elevation. This is God pulling you out of a cycle you were never meant to repeat. This is God preparing you for love that is consistent, steady, transparent, and intentional. Love that doesn't disappear in silence. Love that doesn't hide behind excuses. Love that doesn't make you question your worth. Love that doesn't require you to shrink your needs to fit someone else's emotional immaturity. Someone is coming, someone who will not be intimidated by your depth. Someone who will not run from your heart. Someone who will love you with the same intensity you loved him, but with the maturity he never offered. Someone who knows how to communicate, how to show up, how to honor you, how to build a future with you instead of offering words that never turn into action. But before this person arrives, God must remove what blocks the blessing. Sometimes the blockage is a person. Sometimes the blockage is an illusion. Sometimes the blockage is the version of someone you created in your mind. And God is removing all three right now. You may not understand the timing, but the timing is perfect. You may not see the full picture, but God does. You may still feel traces of attachment, but they are fading. The more truth you see, the lighter you become. The more the mask falls, the more your heart frees itself. The more God reveals, the easier it becomes to let go of what was never meant to stay. This is not the end of love for you. This is the end of deception. This is the end of emotional instability. This is the end of settling for half-effort connections. This is the end of being fooled. This is the final moment where God closes the chapter not with pain, but with clarity. You've reached the point where truth stops whispering and starts echoing. Every unanswered question, every uneasy feeling, every moment that felt slightly off, they all begin to form a picture that finally makes sense. God wasn't trying to take something away from you, He was trying to show you what was never truly yours in the first place. And now that you see clearly, your heart is no longer chained to illusions. You are no longer waiting for promises that were never meant to be fulfilled. You are no longer stuck in cycles that drained your spirit more than they nurtured it. God is exposing Him now because your spirit is ready for a level of love and alignment He cannot give. Maybe He cared, yes. Maybe He felt something real, yes. But feelings alone are not enough. Intention matters. Effort matters. Truth matters. Commitment matters. And consistency matters. What He gave you was only pieces, pieces of affection, pieces of attention, pieces of intention. But God is calling you into a season where you receive whole love, whole commitment, whole truth, whole connection. You're stepping into a chapter where you will no longer be confused about where you stand in someone's life. You will no longer be an option in places where you should be a priority. You will no longer have to decode mixed signals or chase clarity from someone who thrives in emotional ambiguity. What God is exposing is not just who He is, it's who you've become. Stronger, sharper, wiser, more spiritually aware, more grounded in your worth. You're not the person who fell for sweet words without matching action. You're not the person who ignored red flags because hope was louder. You're not the person who minimized your feelings just to avoid losing someone who wasn't afraid of losing you. You've awakened. You've evolved. You've outgrown the emotional version of yourself who tolerated half-truths disguised as effort. This is why God intervened. You wouldn't have walked away without a revelation. You wouldn't have chosen yourself without clarity. You wouldn't have closed this door without divine exposure. Not because you're weak, but because you love deeply. And deep love can attach you to the wrong soul if you're not careful. So God stepped in, not to punish, but to protect. Not to break your heart, but to rebuild it. Not to take love away, but to guide you toward a love that reflects the fullness of who you are. You may still feel the sting. You may still replay moments. You may still wonder if things could have been different. But let this truth settle gently into your spirit. If it was meant for you, God would never have exposed it. God reveals what He does not intend to let you return to. God exposes what He intends to remove. God brings truth to the surface when the time for illusion is over. And your time of illusion is over. Your time of confusion is over. Your time of waiting for someone's potential to catch up with your heart is over. The exposure is the release. The release is the healing. And the healing is the preparation. What's ahead of you is not just another relationship. It's restoration. It's divine alignment. It's a connection that won't require you to explain your value, defend your feelings, or beg for reciprocity. It's someone who shows up because they want to, stays because they're ready, and commits because they see your worth clearly, the way God sees it. Imagine a love where you're not anxious, where you're not wondering what they're doing when they disappear, where you're not fighting silent fears or decoding mixed messages. Imagine a connection where trust isn't a battle, where communication flows naturally, where your heart feels safe, supported, and understood. This isn't fantasy, this is what God is preparing you for. But to walk into that promise, you had to be released from the counterfeit. You had to be freed from the almost, the maybe, the someday. God knew that as long as you held on to uncertainty, you would never be available for the blessing He's sending, so God exposed him. Not because he is evil, but because he is not aligned. Not because he didn't feel anything, but because he couldn't offer everything. Not because there was no potential, but because potential alone cannot sustain destiny. Your destiny requires clarity, stability, maturity, and honesty. And God refuses to let you enter the next season with anything less. You are stepping into a chapter where love will feel easy, aligned, peaceful, and mutual. Where someone will look at you and see the blessing you are, without hesitation, without games, without hidden motives. Where loyalty isn't a question but a natural expression of their heart. Where truth isn't something you have to pull out, but something they offer freely. Where healing happens not because you force it, but because the connection itself is healthy. This is why you had to go through this revelation. This is why God had to uncover what was hidden. This is why the truth had to emerge now, not later, not someday, not after more damage, but now. Because your next chapter is too close, too important, too sacred for you to carry old wounds, old illusions, or old attachments into it. You have been fooled long enough. But now you're free. Free to walk into a future designed for you, not a future held back by someone who could not rise to the level of your heart. Free to choose clarity over confusion, peace over chaos, truth over fantasy, destiny over temporary comfort. Free to let God guide your heart rather than letting emotions guide your choices, and when the right one arrives, you will understand why this exposure was necessary. You will understand why God didn't let you settle. You will understand why the truth had to come at the exact moment it did. Because the person God is preparing for you will not resemble what you just walked away from. They will not require you to justify your worth. They will not test your patience by withholding clarity. They will not hide you, confuse you, or minimize your presence in their life. They will choose you, openly, boldly, consistently, and you will realize that the exposure wasn't the ending you feared. It was the doorway you needed. The doorway into a love God Himself preserved for you. The doorway into the life your heart has been waiting for. The doorway into a chapter where everything that once hurt finally makes sense. This is your release. This is your freedom. This is your divine turning point. God has exposed him, and now God is elevating you.